Hello and welcome to Crushing Comics, the series where I fall in love with my comic collection all over again. I'm standing here because behind me is this giant sack. It says a lot of things on it. United States Postal Service. So this is a bale of books that I ordered from In Stock Trades, which is where I order a lot of my books when I'm doing a big heavy volume order. And they shipped it to me here in New Zealand. It took about 5 weeks to get here, and I just got it the other day after kvetching on the internet, like, is it ever going to get here? And now I get to do my first, like, for real unboxing. I promise in the future I'll have opened the bag already, but this was just, like, too exciting. What if spiders come out? Like, I have no idea what's going to happen. Okay. So this, I guess it probably went by ship, because why would something take 5 or 6 weeks to get here if it was not going by ship? Whoa, this is a little beat up. The problem with these unboxing videos when it comes to comics is that you could have a sad ending to the video. I clearly need to come up with some kind of table thing to do this, so I'm not just like slashing. If you could see the whole setup in here, the video camera is actually my laptop, and it's just on a giant pile of empty comic short boxes. So In Stock Trades usually does really good wrapping of their books, but they decided not to for this order. Instead, they used packing peanuts. Usually they do like a solid styrofoam film, so hopefully these books are not too bumped up. No, sorry I talk trash in In Stock Trades. They're actually so helpful. Right before I left the States, I put in an order, and it wasn't moving because it got back-ordered due to one book being out of stock. And I had kind of counted on it getting to my house in time to put on the truck with all of the mover stuff. And so I'm like waiting for the box and waiting for the box, and now the movers are at my house for their 2-day engagement, and the box is not at my house. So In Stock Trades, part of how they probably maintain their profit margin is not talking to crazy people like me on the phone all the time. So I like emailed them, and I was like, you've got to help me. I'm about to leave the country. Where is this massive box of books? My final order as a U.S. resident. And they're like, oh, it's still here. And I'm like, can you do anything? Because the truck leaves my house to go to a boat tomorrow. And they overnighted that damn box of books to my house the next day, which still was cheaper than getting them sent to New Zealand. So let's see what I bought. Oh. So I was just talking about this series to a friend today. Locke and Key. This is so good. In fact, I have the rest of them. They're like right behind me somewhere down here. Oh, here they are. Locke and Key. They're right behind me. So this is the first one. Locke and Key is this brilliant, brilliant series by Joe Hill, where this family of 3 kids and a mom who have been victims of a very horrific violence move back to their family home, which is this crazy big old rambling, I guess, Victorian-style house with a lot of doors and a lot of keys. And the kids and the whole family go through a really, really unexpected supernatural journey related to the keys that are hidden around the house and the town and the different effects they have if you go through a door that they open. I read it in days. I got the first one just like, oh, maybe I'll read this. And I kept reading them, and I devoured them. I could not recommend it any more highly if you like horror comics, because it is scary. So this is actually after the regular series, and they've done a couple of one-shots and special issues to fill out the world. And this is one of them. They've done us the great favor of reissuing them in the same format that the rest of the series came out, which, you know, obsessives like me like. Recently, Joe Hill said that they're working on the pilot of a show, which they've done one before and it didn't really go well, but now they're doing one with him supervising, and if the show gets picked up, they are prepared to return to the world, so I really hope that's going to happen. This is Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. Not the book, but a graphic novel version. It was previously in 2 different editions, but now there is a complete edition. This is maybe a little above something that I could read with my 4-year-old, because it does have some murder and knives and things in it, but who's going to turn down new Neil Gaiman comic books? He technically is not the writer of this. P. Craig Russell adapted it, but it's from Gaiman's story with a lot of his original dialogue. Let's see. 2 Marvel Masterworks. 2! So one is Luke Cage Power Man, Volume 2. So here you go. Volume 1 was actually Luke Cage Hero for Hire, which should be up here somewhere. Here it is. But then his series changed title to Power Man for the second. I don't really know a lot of Luke Cage. This is one of those comics that was not accessible to me as a kid, not because I didn't think the material was good, but you couldn't get it. These were, early, mid-70s floppies. They weren't in the kind of demand that Uncanny X-Men was in, but they were also not easy to come by at your average comic convention. And because Luke Cage had no profile in the 80s when I was reading, he had his brief Cage series, which came back, but that was not at the top of my list to read at the time. I had just no knowledge of him. It's funny how certain Marvel characters, after the big phase-out in 1985, like around Secret Wars, when they kind of ended a lot of longer-running series like that, like Defenders, like Shang-Chi's series, were just invisible to kids who were coming in on the speculator boom because they were focused on a completely different cast of characters. Another Marvel Masterworks in this order is Marvel 2-in-1. I never really understood Marvel Team-Up and 2-in-1. Like, I just thought they were random team-ups, all the day long. But it turns out Marvel Team-Up was a Spider-Man book, and almost exclusively had Spider-Man teaming up with somebody else, sometimes Human Torch. And Marvel 2-in-1 was usually a Thing. So it was effectively a Thing solo title, which is crazy to think about that. The Fantastic Four was such a big book in the 70s and even into the 80s that it needed spin-off titles for Human Torch, who was serialized in Strange Tales at a point, and also for Thing. That's how big Fantastic Four was, and Thing was thought of as this, like, prohibitive, cool hero, which is funny to me, because I think of him as, like, this stodgy, old hero. When he's on the page, I have to confess, I don't get that excited. I know a lot of people love him, but I don't. And just to think that he had his own series, long-running, went into the 30s. So that's my first little pack of books from IST. Let's see if I can get into the second one here. Oh, there's another good one. Wow, they gave me like some random flimsy thing. What is it? October. Direct from your local comic shop. Slots. I have no idea. Okay. Oh man, what a great freaking order this is. Okay, quicker hits here. So this is Spider-Man Revenge of the Goblin. It is a collection of Amazing Spider-Man 1999, so the relaunch, the first time Amazing Spider-Man had been renumbered, 20 to 29. These are some of the longest running unreprinted Spider-Man comics there have been. There's some, of course, in his Amazing Spider-Man series that haven't been reprinted, although Marvel is like slowly reaching those in epics. But this gap is significant because it's when Marvel was not printing as many comics as during their like bankruptcy scare downturn before all the movies got really, really big, but right around when the first movie's coming out, and the floppies are really expensive. So you did not really, I was going to bind them, so I was like, oh hey, I have all the books on either side, let me just bind what's in this volume. And I do not shy away from binds that have kind of somewhat pricey books in them, but this one was prohibitively expensive. So I'm really excited to have this. It fills an awesome, awesome gap in Spider-Man. Let's do... So this, I find this so interesting. So this is called S.H.I.E.L.D. Hydra Reborn. And this is one of those examples where Marvel really was trying to do a service to the fans by finishing out a reprint series that didn't have a strong market, and so they tied it into current stuff. This series is of the 1989 S.H.I.E.L.D. book. Does that look like 1989 illustration to you? No. Because it's not. And Hydra Reborn, is it a coincidence that Hydra had just had a big comeback in Secret Empire this year? No. So this is the end of that 1989 Nick Fury series. But it is covered with a Jim Chung cover. Jim Chung was doing like fill-in issues of X-Force at this point. He was not the hottest artist at Marvel. But I think it was a good thing because it completes that Nick Fury Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. series. It lets us have it all in trade paperback. And that's a run that I bought that I thought I was going to have to bind. And here we are 3 years later, and they took care of it in 4 paperbacks. So thumbs up, Marvel. Okay, almost done. I don't just buy Marvel books. Actually, a lot of this shelf is all Image. This is all Image and Indie, Mignolaverse, more Image. but I do have a prohibitive amount of Marvel. This is not. This is Mercury Heat. From Avatar, who's usually a little extreme and bloody for my taste, but I will kind of follow Kieran Gillen anywhere because he's just fantastic. And I really enjoyed the first one of this. The basic premise is there's this planet where when the sun is up, the planet, you can't survive. Like, you'll just get melted. And to do law enforcement on that planet, not only is catching the bad guys, but outrunning the heat. And I don't remember a whole lot more because I read thousands of comic books every year. But I do remember I liked it, so I'll probably reread the first book and then read the second book. And I think this might finish out the series. Okay. Then finally, I have 2 new Epic collections. Marvel's Epic collections are their attempt to collect entire series, totally inclusive of everything chronologically that happens in them, but collecting them non-sequentially in terms of volumes being released. So, for example, this is the first or second Defenders Epic, and it is volume, oh, how are we going to get you to see that? Volume 7. And it collects issues 110 to 125, so right up to the point that they turn into new Defenders and have a little bit of a cast turnover. And the previous volume that had been issued is volume 6. So these 2 volumes are sequential to each other, but where's volume 1 through 5? And are they going to continue with volume 8 and on? Nobody knows, because the epics come out in a seemingly random order. Marvel is, in some cases, trying to fill in the gaps that make sense. So with Defenders, they started filling in after the Defenders Epic collections were over, so that there's some sense of getting good coverage of the title. For other Epic collections, they filled around existing runs, like with the first X-Men Epic collection, which continues from where the X-Men Marvel Masterworks have left off, and up to a trade that was issued on the other side to fill in a gap. So epics are kind of gap-filling, but then sometimes they repeat stuff that has been already printed before. And then here we have a Daredevil Epic number 14, which is Heart of Darkness. This is part of the Ann Nocenti Daredevil run, which is really well regarded by fans, and has some John Romita art, who I don't always love, but I do really love him on Daredevil. Something about John Romita's like freaky square faces that he does just really has always worked for me in Daredevil. And Nocenti has Daredevil do some things that are unusual. Here is with Inhumans, right? There's Lockjaw. Has him fighting Blackheart in Hell. So this is not your typical Daredevil book. This is after Frank Miller's return in Born Again comes the Nocenti. And this is actually the latter half of her run. It starts on 271. So that is my first shipment of American comics here in New Zealand, and I'm really happy to have the fix. And some of these books are ones I've been really eager for, like Mercury Heat, for the collected Graveyard book, for more Locke and Key. Some of the ones I'm buying just to complete a collection, like the Defenders Epics and the Daredevil Epics. Am I at some point going to sit down and read 400 issues straight of Daredevil when I have all of the Marvel Masterworks and Epics lined up? Who knows? This is the sickness that is collecting. So thanks for watching this episode of Crushing Comics. There's not going to be a whole lot of these unboxing episodes because the boxes take a long time to get here, and so I'm trying not to order a whole lot of them, maybe like one every 4 to 6 weeks, but these will be very special episodes. In the next episode, back to unwrapping the giant wall of comics. So thanks so much for watching.